Okay, folks. Hi. I am just going to check and make sure I am live. Oh my goodness, I have like 3 million. Oh my gosh, I have so many notifications on my phone. Focus, Megan. We will get there when we're done with this live. Hello to everybody watching. Hello, hello. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Sorry, I know I'm live. I know it, but like, what if I'm not? What if it wasn't working? Okay, there we go. We're good. We're good. Okay. Hi, everybody. So today I thought we could talk a little bit about ADHD and emotion struggles because there are actually a lot of them. And I think this is like a really underrepresented issue in autistic ADHDers that we do not talk about enough, that we absolutely should be talking about more because it can have such a huge impact on our lives, and not just like the practical stuff, but also the quality of our lives, right? And like what we think about ourselves, what we think about the people who love us, and how we relate to other people and whatnot. So first of all, sorry I'm late. I had another call that went a little over, but it was a lovely call. I'm glad that we had it. So I am here now, and we are going to talk about emotions, and we are going to talk about ADHD and how they interconnect. So if you don't know me that well, hello, my name is Megan. I am autistic and ADHD. I got diagnosed 2 years ago now, 3 years ago now. Goodness, I don't know, a while. It's been a minute, but not like super long. I wasn't early diagnosed or anything. So I was diagnosed in adulthood with autism and ADHD. I've been diagnosed with depression for a long time. And I also realized a couple years ago that I've got some like trauma stuff that plays in there as well. So I am multiply neurodivergent. And I talk a lot on the internet about autism and ADHD because psychology and the concept of the self have been my special interests for a long time. I used to just say psychology, but now I'm like, no, social justice and astrology and the Enneagram, like anything that has to do with defining the self is like really, really on my radar. And I am very, very invested and interested in it. So yeah, the concept of the self is my special interest, which sounds a little self-centered, I suppose, but I can't help it. Like I am a person on this earth, and like I I think understanding myself is integral to understanding the world. So that's how I view things. I view things through the lens of like, what is the self? What does it mean to be a person? Um, let me go ahead and pull up the chat real quick. So if you guys want to chit chat with me, go ahead and leave comments, questions in the chat. I'm super happy to answer questions. I am here today to mostly talk about like emotions and what it's like to be autistic and ADHD, because I think when it comes to ADHD, we talk a lot about focus, right? Focus, attention, all of that, which makes sense. That is a huge part of it. And then when we talk about autism, we talk a lot about sensory needs, social differences, stuff like that. Again, very important. Those are like main parts of being autistic. But what we don't always talk about is the emotional struggles that can often go hand in hand with both autism and ADHD. And then when you have both, it's just like worlds colliding. And obviously, being both autistic and ADHD can be tricky and difficult, regardless. But I think when it comes to emotions, it's really interesting. And I think more people need to be talking about this because my emotions were so impacted by my autism and ADHD that before we knew I was autistic and ADHD, I was actually misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder, which is a condition that is mostly defined by mood episodes. So basically having very intense moods that are either much higher, which is like mania or hypomania, or much, much lower, which is like dysthymia or depression, than, most people's normal window of emotions. Now, I want to be clear, everyone's going to experience some stuff that's way above and some stuff that's way below. That is not bipolar. Bipolar is, from my understanding of it, which I did a lot of research when I was diagnosed with it, from my understanding is about these mood episodes that kind of are completely outside of your control, and they take over, and it's very, very difficult to bring yourself back to this like window of tolerance, right? So if you're manic, like, first of all, you may not realize you're manic. And then even if you do, oftentimes it's really hard to bring yourself back down. It takes a lot of work and effort. Same thing with depression. You may not even know you're depressed, or you might realize, oh, I'm depressed, but there's not always something you can do to climb out of that hole, right? And Bipolar, I think, gets a very interesting reputation in that it is like the emotional dysregulation disorder. If you have emotional dysregulation, you have bipolar. Like that is kind of the assumption in pop psychology, at least. But from my understanding, that's like not the case at all. First of all, there are lots of other diagnoses that go hand in hand with emotional dysregulation. For example, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and ADHD and autism as well, by the way. So it's not the only condition in the DSM defined by some differences in emotional regulation, right? And I think bipolar is often depicted as like, swinging wildly from one mood to the next, and there's no control, and it all happens really fast. And that is actually a small piece of what it's like to have borderline personality disorder from everything I've learned about that. Borderline tends to include much faster mood swings where you tend to forget the way you felt as soon as it's over and all of this stuff. Whereas bipolar, rapid cycling bipolar disorder is considered more than 4 episodes in a year. Right. So, like, bipolar is not the day to day, really intense mood swings. That tends to be other stuff, right? It could be trauma triggers that you're going through. It could be related to borderline, could be related to ADHD, even. So, um, I just wanted to briefly talk about bipolar disorder because I was misdiagnosed with it for a long time. Full disclosure, my therapist is now saying, like, well, now I'm not entirely confident it was a misdiagnosis. And I was like, are you serious? And she's like, no, I'm not diagnosing you as bipolar. I don't think that you are. But she's, how did she say it? She says, sometimes you say things that make me wonder. I was like, oh. I don't think I have bipolar disorder, or if I had one therapist tell me, if you have bipolar disorder, it's a very unusual form. And that I would agree with. I might have it, but it's a weird type. But here's the real kicker for me that kind of cements the idea that I'm not bipolar. And that is that most people who have bipolar disorder cannot take a antidepressant alone because it will make them manic. I took an antidepressant alone for like a year and I still ended up depressed. So I'm going with probably not bipolar, right? But the thing is, being autistic and ADHD can sometimes mimic bipolar disorder in some ways. And by the way, bipolar is a totally valid diagnosis. If you have bipolar, that is totally fine and absolutely welcome here. It didn't fit my symptomology, right? I didn't fit that, even though it somewhat mimicked it, right? So for me, let's talk about the emotional struggles often involved in autism and ADHD, because like I said, they aren't really considered the forefront of those two conditions, right? But I think they can be a really big part of it. So with ADHD, I like to think of ADHD as a regulation, like, experience, I guess. I don't know. I don't really love the word disorder, condition, like, I don't know. It's a different experience with regulation, right? So, for example, like, we have trouble regulating our attention. We don't have a deficit of attention all the time, right? Oftentimes we do, but oftentimes we have hyperfocus, which is like an abundance of attention, right? So what we actually struggle with when it comes to attention as ADHDers is how to regulate that attention. Our attention feels like a light switch. It's either on or it's off, and like that's it. There's no like dimmer switch where we can kind of focus or kind of not. Like, that's just not how ADHD works. We've got a light switch, it's on or off, and that's it. But I think with ADHD, a lot of other stuff works that same way for us, including emotions. I think emotions are also kind of on a light switch. We're either happy or we're not happy. Either we're mad or we're not mad. And like there's very little gray. I think a lot of ADHDers, especially when you're AUDHD, because autism comes with very rigid thinking patterns that can lead to black and white thinking. We just tend to be very on or off, yes or no, big or small, like opposites, binaries, right? Which is so interesting because autistic people especially are much more likely to be trans and non-binary. So that's so interesting that we think of gender very fluidly, but a lot of other things we really struggle to think of them like in gray areas. And I think this might actually be related. This is a total guess. I'm not a doctor. Please take this with a grain of salt. But I think the reason a lot of autistic folks have these like rigid mindsets, but are still able to think of gender very fluidly, is that it's actually a rigid mindset saying, well, gender doesn't exist. Gender isn't real. Gender doesn't matter. Like it's that rigid, like black and white, it doesn't matter or it does matter, right? And a lot of autistic people just reject the gender binary entirely, and that's totally fine and very cool. So anyway, bit of a side note. But I think a lot of ADHDers, when it comes to emotions, either we are emotional or we are not emotional. And like it's either on or it's off. And for me at least, and I know a lot of other people, I've made videos about this that people tend to relate to, is like object permanence, emotional object permanence, which is like when I'm happy, I feel like I have always been happy and I will always be happy. Like that's it. That nothing, no other emotion even exists. It's not possible to feel other emotions. And anytime I thought I was feeling other emotions, I was wrong, right? That's literally how intense it is for me. The same thing, unfortunately, happens when I am sad. It feels like I have always been sad. Any happy memories I have are false. They're just lies I told myself. And I will always be sad forever and ever. There is literally zero possibility that this is going to change. That's how my emotions work. I have a lot of emotional object permanence, and I think it's related to my ADHD for sure, because we struggle with emotional object permanence in general. I also think my autism plays a really big role in my emotional dysregulation, right? um, so I think part of it comes back to the rigid thinking. Emotions are on or off, yes or no, all or nothing. And I also think like my autism really likes to push things to their natural conclusion, if that makes sense. So like I saw this a lot when I was in my master's program for poetry. I would write these poems that were based on these metaphors, and I would just like keep pushing and pushing and pushing until the metaphor didn't make sense anymore. And like that's kind of what my autism does, is it takes something logical and it pushes it until it's not logical anymore, and then it abandons it. And so like when I am feeling depressed, for example, my autism will then take that and be like, well, what if you are depressed forever? And what if like how will this depression play out for the rest of your life? Like it's pushing this reality to see the breaking point. And that's like not always healthy or helpful, right? To push yourself to the breaking point, even in hypotheticals. Like it can be really disorienting and frustrating and kind of make you feel hopeless. So, um, also, we can't talk about emotional struggles and autism without talking about meltdowns, right? Like meltdowns are a huge part of this as well. If you are like, well, I don't have like classic meltdowns with like the screaming and slamming doors and like punching stuff, and like that's not my meltdowns, but I do have these like really intense periods where I feel out of control, and I lock myself in my room so that I don't like freak out in front of people, but internally I am losing control, and like I'm yelling at myself in my head, and I feel horrible. The world has just gone completely sideways. To me, that's an internalized meltdown. And again, not a doctor, not a therapist, so take it with a grain of salt, but I have had one or two external meltdowns before, and that feeling is the same as when I'm having those internalized meltdowns. It's just the way I'm behaving is different. And I think that has a lot to do with masking. For me, it has a lot to do with trauma and what was and was not allowed growing up. Um, and like, I think some of us just internalize our meltdowns a lot. And I think this is different from a shutdown, because an internalized meltdown still involves all of the like energy and rage and like potency of a meltdown, but a shutdown is more dissociative. It's where you're just like, you go offline. You're like, I am done. And that's both externally and internally, right? If you're externally offline, but internally you're like raging, that's an internalized meltdown to me. Whereas when you just completely dissociate and go offline, I think that's a shutdown. Hello. Can I manage ADHD without medicine? So I am not a doctor, so I cannot give any medical advice. Do not take this as medical advice. But from what I have heard from lots of people, some people do manage their ADHD without medication. Some people use supplements and they find that those work really well. Other people don't use any form of medication or supplementation or anything, and they find that there are other tools that work for them really well, other like accommodations and strategies and tools that can be really super effective for some people. There are other people like me who take medication sometimes. Like I took my medication today, but I don't take it every day. Um, and there are other people who need their meds every day, and that's totally fine. Everybody's different. This is a very medication neutral space where if you take meds, awesome. If you don't take meds, awesome. Like I want you to do what's best for you. So yeah, I do find that I take ADHD specific medication, like a stimulant, but I'm on like 4 different psychotropic medications. I'm not going to tell you which ones specifically because I don't want people like, oh, well, Megan's taking this, I should try it. Like, I don't want that vibe. But I can tell you like the class of medications I'm on. So I'm taking an ADHD stimulant. I'm also taking a non-stimulant that's like for my ADHD, but also kind of for my depression. It kind of helps with both. Then I'm taking a regular SSRI, like an antidepressant, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Um, and then I'm also taking an antipsychotic, sometimes called a mood stabilizer, depends on who you talk to, but I don't take it for psychosis. There's nothing wrong with psychosis, by the way. I think that's a really natural part of the human experience for some of us, and that's fine. But it's just not something I experience. I take my antipsychotic because it really, really helps with unaliving thoughts. It helps reduce those for me. And it also really helps reduce autistic meltdowns for me, which is really great. That's actually one of the off-label uses for this medication is reducing autistic agitation, which is awesome. And it works really well for me. I love my medications. I think they make my life a lot better. I think I am one of those people who would have a really hard time without them. But I also understand that there are some people who medication doesn't help or medication makes things worse um, or they just are uninterested in medication, and I think that's fine. I think at the end of the day, it's your body, it's your brain. You should get to decide what's going on with it and what tools you do or do not use. When it comes to emotional dysregulation, I think it's interesting. Stimulant medication is often utilized to help us focus, but I find that it really improves my mood as well. Like not in like a high kind of way because I have ADHD. Like stimulants don't get me high at all. But what it does is it's a focus thing in the sense that like all these negative emotions are like kind of always creeping around my brain. My stimulant medication kind of tunnels me in on what I want to feel. And or rather, I should say it tunnels me in on what I am feeling. So like yesterday I took my stimulant medication and I wasn't feeling very well when I took it. I was in a pretty bad headspace. Took my medication. I was kind of hoping it would knock me out of it, but instead it really zeroed in on a lot of these negative emotions. And it was a bad day. But like today I took my stimulant medication and I was in a good mood. And so it's like really it like emphasizes the mood that you're already in, which is why I tend to avoid taking it when I'm having a hard day because it just is going to amplify it in my experience. I heard that ADHD medicine long usage affect heart and lead to heart attack or damage brain. So we need to do lots of research on these medications and stuff, but generally speaking, long-term usage of a stimulant can absolutely have effects on your body and on your brain. A lot of people develop a tolerance to it, and so they need to keep increasing their dosage until eventually they hit a point where they can't anymore. It's not safe. But from what I know, I don't know that stimulants are related to heart attacks or to brain damage. I could be wrong about that, though. I am not a doctor, so don't want to pull this card, but I'm a doctor. Ask you to please talk to your doctor. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Please talk to your doctor. I am a life coach and I think I can help with a lot of good stuff, but I can't help with medication like at all. That is nope, not what I do. Learning to feel my negative emotions and not compartmentalize and pretend they're not there. I laugh when I say that. Okay, Forge, let's talk about sorry, my nose it gets really itchy when I go live. I don't know why that is, but anyway, weird psychosomatic thing. Let's talk about compartmentalization and avoidance versus distraction. Right. So I really love dialectical behavioral therapy. I can't do dialectical behavioral therapy with my clients because I am not a therapist, but I have been the recipient of DBT before. One tool that they teach in DBT is distraction. And when I first read that, I was like, aren't we supposed to like not avoid our feelings? Aren't we supposed to like feel them and whatever? And the therapist very like calmly explained to me, like, yeah, of course. But sometimes an emotion is so big, or you're in a position where you just can't feel that without drowning in it. And that spoke to my soul, because I've always had therapists tell me, like, oh, ride the wave of your emotions. It's a wave. Stop fighting the ocean. Just ride it. And I'm like, you do not understand. My emotions are tsunamis. Like, what are you talking about? You don't ride a tsunami. But this idea of DBT, of distraction, really helped me, because it was like, well, if I can distract myself from the big tsunami emotion, it will start to get smaller, and then I will be able to handle it. So what we don't want to do is compartmentalize, in the sense of like, I'm going to put this in a little box and I'm never going to open that box again. Like, that's not what we want to do. But it is okay, and actually very beneficial for many of us, to say, this emotion is too big for me right now, and so I am walking away. I will come back to it when it's a wave and not a tsunami. Right? I'm leaving, and I'll come back. And then here's the trick. You have to actually come back. You can't lie to yourself and be like, I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it. And then never do it. That's how emotions build up and bottle up, and then they explode or implode. And that's no good, no fun. So I think, yeah. So what are some of the ways I've like used distraction? Sometimes it's like going live with you guys here on YouTube or on Instagram or something like that. I use interaction with others to pause my emotions a lot, because I'm very extroverted. I get a lot of joy and peace from interacting with other people. And I know a lot of people who are introverted do not relate to that, and that's totally fine. My husband, every time I tell him something like that, he's like, "You're insane." I'm like, "I'm just extroverted and you're not. It's all good." So what was I going to say? It'll come back. It won't come back. That's okay. I'm gonna check the chat. Hold on. Okay, I can speak a little bit of Spanish, which I think is what this language is. Something, a moment of frustration or burnout, and decide to go to YouTube to something distract me. I don't know. Yeah, hi. I totally get moments of frustration where you turn to the internet, because it's like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. I just need a moment of distraction, and that's totally fine. What we want to do is make sure we come back to our emotions safely. So how do we do that? So for me, what this often looks like is I will walk away from an emotion. I'm like, nope. And I will go rage clean, or I will go cook dinner. Oftentimes I do something very practical, something with my hands. I pull weeds, I make dinner, I play with my kids, something very like tactile, I think really helps me. Then the emotion starts to get smaller, oftentimes, not always. Sometimes it grows and grows and grows. And that's when I text my therapist, like, hey, I need some help. But generally, it often starts to shrink. And then once it's to a reasonable size, intensity, whatever, I'm like, I don't want to go back to that. I feel better now. Once I feel better, I don't want to go back to my negative emotions. And that is where my handy dandy journal comes in. This is actually my business journal. Here's my journal. I've been doing morning pages, which is recommended from the Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. But you write like 3 pages a day every day. This is just since the start of September. Like, look at that. That's like a month, and I've written so much. Excuse me. So highly recommend journaling, because you can start off with like, I don't want to feel bad. This is not about me feeling bad. I just need to like process what I was feeling before, but I don't want it to come back and eat me. Like, we have to trust that we can handle our emotions, and that if it does start to swell and become a tsunami, you can walk away again. You get to decide how you handle this, and it's okay. See, Most Emotions by 30 something Jane. What am I reading? Hold on. Most emotions can be powerhouse memories attached to them. From my own ADHD experience, those memories intensify my emotions. So many typos. It's okay, Forge. It happens. It so happens. It's fine. Okay, but memories can be, or emotions can be supercharged by memories. This is probably a trauma thing. And again, not a therapist, but for me at least, I find that emotions that are supercharged by memories. Those memories are often very painful ones, and the fact that it's something called an emotional flashback, right? And that is where you don't have visuals or auditory of the memory necessarily, but instead it's like you're back in that emotional landscape again. It's a flashback to that exact emotion you felt in that exact memory in that exact situation. And that can be related to trauma. And I know I have definitely dealt with some emotional flashbacks for sure. Yeah, lately I try not to run from my emotion, but validate it and do something that makes me feel good or go through that emotion smoothly. Thank you for your recommendation. I'll write this down. Yes, I love it. Also, your English is great, by the way. Sorry that we have to communicate in English. That's the only language I know, unfortunately. I took some Spanish, I took some Italian, um, but not fluent in any of it. But yeah, I think if you're struggling with your emotions, I actually have something that might be of interest to you guys. Let me pull it up. Um, so this is a course that I created called the Managing Mood Swings course. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. There we go. So this is the course. It's $67. It's a whole course that you can get about dealing with emotions. Can you guys see that? Can you let me know to make sure you guys can actually see my screen? That would be helpful. Okay, I think you can. So basically, this is the Managing Mood Swings course, how to ride the wave of your emotions when the wave is a freaking tsunami, right? So here are some reasons you might be interested in this particular course. If you are riding an emotional roller coaster where you never know what you might feel next or for how long, you feel like your emotions are always set at 11 and wishing you could do anything to turn it down to a 5. Not knowing who you are because your emotions are always changing. That's a big one for me. Feeling hopeless, broken, like there's something wrong with you. I assure you there is not, okay? When you feel safe enough to actually feel your feelings without shutting down or blowing up, you can break this cycle of emotional dysregulation. How do I know that? Hi, my name is Megan. I'm a deeply emotionally dysregulated person. I used to struggle massively with emotional dysregulation, and it has gotten so much better for me. It's ridiculous. I think I still deal with a lot more emotional dysregulation than your typical, like, neurotypical person. But when my emotions used to get really out of control, it felt like my atoms were splitting and I could barely breathe. I have sobbed on the bathroom floor as my world ended a million times. But now my emotions are still big and sometimes still scary, but they are definitely more manageable, like 90% of the time. And I feel like I'm the one in charge, not them. So I have used every tool available to me to make this happen, including medication, EFT tapping, sleep hygiene, therapy, coaching, mood tracking, and more. I cannot provide you with therapy or meds, but I can provide you with some of these other tools. So in this course, we go over grief. And I know you don't want to accept your mood swings, but they are a part of you. And we need to grieve for the person we thought we had to be in order to be loved, and for all the years lost to pretending when we could have been ourselves all along. And we need to stop hating ourselves for what we can't change. Then we'd go over a practical tool, which is sleep. Trust me, everything about the nervous system works better when you're on a regular sleep schedule. I resisted this for a long time, but we got to work on this if we want anything to get better. And then finally, I've got a mindset tool for you, and that is Wise Mind. This also comes from dialectical behavioral therapy. Your emotions are not automatically correct, but neither is your logic. They are two sides of the same coin of your personal truth, and Wise Mind can help us accept them both. This skill, Wise Mind, is helpful for validating, and it's also practically really helpful. It's the ultimate tool, in my opinion. So what you get when you join the course, again, it's only $67, but you get an introduction of like what is emotional dysregulation. You get 3 videos about grief. You get 3 videos about sleep, 3 videos about Wise Mind. Then you'll also get a grief 2.0, who even am I without my mood swings? Because that can be a big thing, right? You've become very accustomed to being a person with mood swings and emotional dysregulation. And when that starts to go away, your identity can get really weird. So we go over that. This is actually not produced yet. This is coming out soon. Everything else is there. You get a Wise Mind journaling exercise that I developed that I'll show you how to do it. A video on how to make a mental breakdown box, and then also some EFT tapping exercises. I believe I have 2 in there right now. 3 more are coming. This bonus has expired, unfortunately, but if you are interested in tracking your mood, sleep, caffeine and alcohol, and unaliving thoughts, you can go to my shop and you can get this mental health tracker. It comes with a mood tracker, habit tracker, and trigger tracker, which is super helpful. So the total value is $670, but I only sell it for 67. There are no refunds just because it's a digital course and digital stuff, you have it. So it doesn't work that way. How long is the course? There's 11 video lessons. Each lesson's about 15 to 30 minutes. So it's about 4 hours in total. So you get lots of good stuff in there. Course is for anybody who deals with emotional dysregulation. Is this really going to help? This course is a collection of non-medication, non-therapy tools that have worked for me, condensed into a simple and interesting course designed to help you actually implement what you learn. I believe this course can help you. What are my qualifications? This is a great question. You should always ask any helping professional. I am a life coach. I am not a doctor. I am not a therapist. My qualifications as the creator of this course are that I am a person who has lived with some very extreme emotional dysregulation over the years, and I have improved that dysregulation using these tools, and I want to teach them to you. I do have a very basic life coaching certification from Transformation Academy, but my certification generally comes from being a person who has lived with emotional dysregulation. So if you're ready for some emotional stability, that is the course. So highly recommend checking that out. Let's see. Yeah, it sounds a lot like borderline. Yeah, borderline is often misdiagnosed for autism. It can. Sometimes people are misdiagnosed with borderline when they're actually autistic or vice versa, or oftentimes people have both, right? That can totally happen. Forgot my grandkids. They are twins' birthday. Oh my goodness, how exciting. Happy birthday to them. Very cool. Let's see. So that's my course. It's $67. You should check it out. It's a really great course. I've poured a lot of love into it and you get a lot of bang for your buck. Not on the spectrum, but newly diagnosed ADHD. Congratulations. Welcome to the family. I am very, very excited that you are here. Would I still benefit? That is up to you, Sarah. Do you struggle with your emotions? Do you struggle with feelings that feel too big for you to hold? Do you struggle with being the right type of person? Do you struggle with getting enough sleep or getting consistent sleep or staying asleep? And then do you struggle with holding two truths in your head of like, it's possible that I have ADHD and I struggle with these things and life can be hard. And also I have ADHD and I'm still a worthwhile person and everything's okay. Like if you struggle with those, the Managing Mood Swings course is going to be good for you. It's going to be a really good fit. Now, if you're listening and you're like, no, mostly my ADHD is related to like focus and schoolwork and homework and work and all this stuff. If it's more related to that, then I recommend you come join me in the Get Shit Done program. Let me go ahead and pull that up for you all. So the Get Shit Done program is more expensive because you get a lot more from it. It is focused on executive dysfunction, which is like trouble with getting shit done, basically, which is why it's called the Get Shit Done program. ADHD can have regulation problems. Oh, for sure. Sounds like exactly what I need. Yeah, go get the course. Go get it. It's still great. But yeah, the Get Shit Done program is a lifetime access program. You get access for as long as the program exists. It has existed in some form or another for the past 3 years, I believe, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And what you get when you join is you get weekly coaching, group coaching calls with me and the other people in the program. You get a whole course about the emotional and practical tools you need in order to be more productive with an ADHD brain. Sarah, look at monotropic thought. Yes, monotropism. I've got 4 videos on monotropism on my channel. You should check them all out. They are some of my favorites that I've made because monotropism really explains a lot. All the time, I have horrible executive dysfunction and perfectionism. Oh, perfectionism is it's so painful to live with that. And I'm really sorry that you feel the need to hold yourself to an impossible standard. And I hope that here in this place with us today, you can feel a little more welcome to be messy. Because it's okay to be messy. It's really okay. I got very lucky in that I don't have a lot of perfectionist tendencies when it comes to like my hair, my house, like stuff like that. I have a lot of perfectionist tendencies, however, when it comes to like being the correct type of person. That's a shame thing that I've got. So that's fun. Your monotropic thoughts prioritize your to-do list depending on your focus for the day. Yeah, I love that. That's a really good way to think of it. Really good tip. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have more questions? Yeah. Yeah. It's not dysfunction or inertia. I think it can be both. I think monotropism can cause inertia because it carries us in one direction so strongly that it can be really hard to like split off or go in a different direction or stop even. So I do think it can go with inertia, but I hear you on like there's a lot of people who are like I don't like the word executive dysfunction. I don't like dysfunction. I function just fine. I just function differently. And then there are other people who are like no, I'm not functioning just fine. I am struggling. Dysfunction is real for me. And so I'm open to whatever language people want to use for sure. I meant that all of your symptoms sound so similar to my experience with borderline, especially the intense emotions and not knowing who you are, etc. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I relate really heavily to borderline. However, I've never been diagnosed, probably because a lot of the time I do know who I am and I do feel relatively stable. It's just like there are these periods that happen that I get so swept up. And with the help of medication and stuff too, it's made a big difference in my emotional dysregulation and stuff. So, but we're actually, my therapist and I are looking into PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, because those periods where I really relate to borderline and I sound like I have borderline are usually the week before my period, which is so interesting, right? My luteal phase. Oh, it's a killer. Um, so let's see. Yes, because you're hyper focused. Yeah, for sure. It's been very helpful listening. Oh, of course. I'm so glad. Welcome, welcome. So yeah, I relate to borderline a lot, but I've asked several different therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists, like, do I have it? And they're all like, I don't think so. And I'm like, all right, if you say so, but I don't know, man. So I go back and forth. Basically, what I've decided is that I have some borderline tendencies and I am allowed to accommodate and take care of those tendencies. And that's what I do. So yeah. DBT also was made by someone with borderline for people with borderline, and I find it unbelievably helpful. So there's that too. Granted, lots of people benefit from DBT. To be fair. So let's see. My suggestion for less stress if you go with the flow of where you go that day. Yes. If you are able to follow your interests as an ADHD or as an autistic person, ADHD or both, if you're able to follow your interests each day as you wake up, what do I want to do? And I'm going to do it. Like your whole life will get so much easier, which is one of the reasons I love running my own business because I have the freedom to do that so much more than people who work for someone else. But also like if you can incorporate your interest for the day into what you have to do, that can help sometimes. Yeah. It's not easy, but regulation is easier. Yeah, it's much easier to regulate your emotions if you can regulate your attention by allowing yourself to be monotropic. For sure. I have noticed that too. Um, I am much more cool, calm, and collected when I get to do what I want to do. Right? Which sounds very like kind of childish, but that's just how monotropism works. Like you have an interest, you have a thing, you want to get it done, and then you do it and you feel better, right? So yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions? Anything you guys want to know about the Get Shit Done program, about the making or the managing mood swings course? Autism likes to be free. Heck yeah, it does. Yeah. Um, let's see. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Do you guys have any questions about emotions and autism and ADHD and other forms of neurodivergence, which totally includes borderline and totally includes bipolar and all of that good stuff? super happy to chat about it, but also my tummy is getting rumbly. So if you guys have questions, ask them now or forever hold your peace until next week, because your girl needs some lunch. And then I gotta record. I gotta get back on the YouTube train because I didn't have a video go up last week, and I really want one to go up this upcoming week. So my executive dysfunction ruins my med adherence. Yeah, Sarah. Yeah, I get that. What I would do is remove as many barriers as you can. So often, what we try to do when we are trying to overcome executive dysfunction is we try to add things, add a routine, add a planner, add this. Honestly, I think the answer 90% of the time is just to remove shit, remove barriers, right? So if your meds are up in a medicine cabinet, put them on the counter where you see them every morning. Or if you have a partner, have them give you your meds every morning and have them watch you take them. Let's see. Make your needs part of your routine. That's a good point too. How else have I reduced friction when it comes to taking my meds? There are lots of apps that remind you to take your meds, just a little ding that goes off every morning. Okay, good. I was just wondering if you had thought about the possibility before, but that does sound different to what I have. Exactly, Brooke. Yeah. Oh, I've definitely thought about it, and for sure. But it's a little different because a lot of the time I do feel like I know who I am. But that's new, frankly. Part of me wonders if I'm just a recovering borderline, like um I'm on medication. I've been in therapy for a decade. Like a lot of my struggles have changed over the years, which is great. I'm eternally grateful for all the work I've done and all the people who've helped me. But yeah, it's hard. I was diagnosed with bipolar and also ADHD. Sometimes I feel like I'm about to explode. I know your content and course will help me a lot. Just wanted to share. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm really glad my content has been helpful. That always makes me unbelievably happy, and I'm always happy to work with you guys. I actually have several one-on-one coaching spots available now. I had a couple of one-on-one coaching clients graduate basically, and so I do have those spots available. So let me go ahead and drop my discovery call link. You can go ahead and book a call with me to oh my gosh, words. You can book a call with me. It's $15. You also get like a $15 coupon after you sign up. The $15 is just to make sure that people show up to the meeting because I'm autistic. And when I had people like canceling or no showing all the time, it was like hard on my nervous system. So anyway, book a discovery call with me if you are interested in working together one-on-one. I have several spots available and I would love to do that. Yeah, let's avoid giving super direct advice in the chat just because you don't know what someone has already tried and you don't know like what's going on in somebody else's life. So we want to be like gentle with our advice, just throwing that out there. Cause yeah, Sarah, I hear you. I don't have a routine. So something I recommend, something that I think helps a lot is this idea that most of us have one thing that we do most days. It doesn't have to be something you do every day religiously at the same time. It doesn't have to be something that you like a whole complicated routine, but most of us have one thing that we do most days. For me, that's my morning coffee. You will not see me start my day without a morning coffee, except for today because we're out of coffee. So I had an energy drink instead. Regardless, my caffeinated beverage of the morning, right? So anyway, that is my like routine. And I have stacked a bunch of other habits on top of that routine. And I think that can help a lot is like taking something you know you're going to do and stacking it. So like when we're out of coffee, I often forget to take my meds because my meds are stacked on top of my coffee. Like that habit stacking thing. So let's see. There's no way to make it part of my routine. Yeah, I get that. I cried when I watched you the first time. I was relieved to know I wasn't alone. Oh my goodness. Hi. Welcome. Hello. I'm so sorry I made you cry. But also, you're not alone. Welcome to the wonderful world of autism, ADHD, executive dysfunction, emotional dysregulation, being a messy, messy person and letting that be okay. Welcome, welcome. Married to ADHD, so that would be a disaster. No, I so get that, Sarah. It's hard when the whole family is a little bit, neurodivergent. It's got their own stuff going on. Okay, so here's what I recommend for remembering to take meds. Um, if you want, you should I'm just gonna drop all the links today. If you want, you should consider joining the Neurodivergent Clubhouse. It's a pay what you can monthly membership. And a lot of people in there do they do like daily body doubling. Um, and what they'll do is like announce what they're going to do for the day and then like they change the little emoji at the beginning to like a check mark as they get stuff done. Um, and it works really well. A lot of people remember to take their meds that way because they've got these like Discord notifications saying like, just took my meds. Did you take yours? Just took my meds. Did you take yours? And like, we kind of hold each other accountable that way. So that could potentially really help. Love your empathy to the comment. Yeah. Yeah. Good. 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 Hello. Hello. All right. So yeah, I think, I don't know what I think. Emotions are hard. Emotions are weird. They're all over the place. It's really difficult. But it is possible to cope with them. I am living freaking proof. Like, you can literally I could go grab my husband from the next room and have him come on live and be like, "Hey, was I an emotional disaster when we met?" And he would be like, "Well, not when we met because you were still living at home and things were different. But then as soon as you went to college, yeah." Like I can hear him. That's exactly what he would say. And I'm like, "Okay, so I was a disaster in college. Is it better now than it used to be?" And he'd be like, "Oh, by miles. By miles." And he used to literally hold me and force me to say 3 things I liked about myself, and it would just make me sob because I hated myself so profoundly that, like, I literally hated the idea of even acknowledging anything about myself that was okay. And now he doesn't have to do that anymore because I'm like, "Yeah, I'm funny, I'm smart, and I'm empathetic." Like, boom, done. Those are 3 things I like about myself. And look, I'm not sobbing. Everything's okay. um so yeah. Yeah, that is the live for today. Do y'all have questions or anything you want to chat about? Anything you want some advice on, or I don't know, what do you need? What do you need? How can I help? Let's see. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. I'm just checking email really quick because I haven't had a chance to check in a minute. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Any questions before we go? Anybody need anything else? All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming to the live. It was lovely to chat with you all. I hope I will see some of you in the Managing Mood Swings course, and I hope to see some of you in the Get Shit Done program or in the Neurodivergent Clubhouse. If you want to work with me one-on-one, just go book a discovery call and we can chat and figure out if we are a good fit. I'm at work. I want to go home. I feel that. Yeah, of course. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to skedaddle. Bye, you guys.